Drinking buddies. Sometimes unicorn bourbon gets all the attention, but the truth is there are some great shelf bottles out there that you might be sleeping on that can rival some of those highly allocated things. Let's talk about it.
I'm your drinking buddy.
All right, drinking buddies. So we're talking about highly allocated products and some readily everyday bottles that might be just as good or easier to find bottles. Some of these are not going to be everyday bottles. Some of these are going to be ones you have to look for, but they shouldn't be as allocated or as hard to come by. And I thought we would start someplace kind of simple with something that's not a unicorn, but is very difficult to find and people often chase it, and that's Blanton's. For Blanton's, I think one of the best things you can do is grab John J. Bowman if you can find that, but I've not been able to find that. I've been able to find Blanton's easier, but in some states, John J. Bowman is just as easy to find as Blanton's. And if that's the case, buy John J. Bowman. It's a little bit more proof and it's the same juice. They just age it in Virginia instead of aging it in Kentucky. But since that one in my area is harder to find than Blanton's, I cannot rightfully suggest that. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and say another single barrel, but a single barrel with a little bit more kick to it. I think Russell's single barrels or Russell's private selections, whichever one you can get your hands on, is going to be the best alternative to Blanton's. Why? They have a similar profile. These are both guys that are going to be loaded up with cherry and vanilla. And, not every Kentucky bourbon is going to have those. And I definitely get a lot of that off of the Russells. So for me, I think that is a great recommendation for an alternative. You're going to get more proof out of this. So if you're a lower proof guy, maybe that's not going to be the best recommendation. But for me, that's about as close as you can get. Next up, E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. Now this is a really hard one to come by. This is the only one I've ever landed, and it's a really great bottle, but it is extremely unicorn level hard to find, at least in my area. And so therefore, I got to find something a little bit easier to get. And right now, in most states, you can go online and buy this. I know if you live in a state where you can't buy online, it might be harder to get, but right now you can go get this Found North Batch 7, and I think it is a comparable whiskey. I've probably been hyping Found North too much lately, to the point where some of you might be getting annoyed, but it's just so rare to find something that you can get online and buy right now that rivals this amazing whiskeys. For some people might try this and not like it as much as the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, but when you consider how hard this is to find and how you can buy this right now, you got to take that into account. And for me, I actually think I might like the Found North more, personally. That's just me, though. Next up, we need to talk BTAC. I think that there's a pretty decent alternative for this Thomas Handy, and I think that it is going to be the newly released Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof Rye. A lot of people on WhiskeyTube are talking about these, but I don't think it's being made clear how good these really are. These are unicorn level bottles. Right now, they're hitting shelves and selling out immediately. But this is supposed to be an everyday shelf bottle eventually. When they start to catch up, when demand goes down a little bit, these should be a lot easier to come by. And when that day comes, man, that's going to be awesome because this is a absolute unicorn, and this should be something that you can buy pretty regularly, and that's awesome. Similar proof points. The Handy's going to have more cherry notes. The Jack is going to have more banana notes, but other than that, they have some things in common, and I think that's a pretty good recommendation. Weller Antique 107. This guy is one that is extremely hard to find in my area, which is a little disappointing because it really is one of my favorite whiskeys, but I can't get my hands on it all the time. But you know what I can get my hands on a lot of the time is Wilderness Trail single barrels, picks. So this is a Wilderness Trail cask strength pick, and it's sitting at 107.19 proof. It was aged for 4 years and 7 months. This is probably pretty similar to what this is. This is probably between 4 and 8 years. So similar age, similar proof, both wheated guys. That is a pretty close comparison. Like that is about as close as you can get without buying a 107. Is it as good as the 107? I don't think it's quite on that level, but it is a really solid bottle, and it's one you can get a lot easier than you can get this. All right, we got to get some more unicorns in here. Old Fitzgerald. This guy was a big disappointment to me, not because it's bad whiskey, but because of the price point and the hype around it. I just feel like there's better things out there that you can get, and to me, this one was a pretty big disappointment. I definitely think it's good whiskey, but it just didn't live up to the hype for me. This one personally is an 11-year. I've had some older ones that were really nice though. So that might be the trick to getting a good Old Fitzgerald this age, and 11 years just isn't enough for me. I want some more oak presence on it. But a great recommendation for Old Fitzgerald. I hate to go back to back on the same distillery, but this is a wheated bourbon, and so is this. This is bottled and bond, so is this. This is Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, so is this. Wheated Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey at 100 proof and bottled and bond. There's not a lot of overlap of things that I can say I can recommend. The only other one that I can think of, I don't personally have, because I don't have access to it in my area, is the Bardstown Origin Series, the wheated one, and that is actually better than this Old Fitzgerald, and it's better than this Wilderness Trail too. I love Wilderness Trail, but that Bardstown Origin Series is really surprising me with how wonderful the quality is, and man, it is not every day you can come across whiskey that good that is just becoming new to the market. Like, new to market whiskey that good is crazy. For our last one, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with Booker's, because Booker's is another one of those allocated products that can be hard to find in some areas, but it can be easier in others. Like, usually if I want to get the release of Booker's, it's like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Like, I can get them if I want them. Of course, this year's Charlie's batch, which was the one that I really, really wanted, was one that I couldn't get. So it does come with the positives and negatives of hunting. Like, there's that one release you really want. Of course, that's going to be the one you can't find. But right now, I'm sure I could drive around town and find a few bottles of the Apprentice batch pretty easily. But the one I wanted, I couldn't find. So you need an alternative for Booker's now, officially. And I think that the only possible answer for that is stick with the same distillery and try to find yourself a Knob Creek single barrel pick. Now this one came from Nana's Kitchen here in Arizona. I talk about Nana's a lot because they're my favorite restaurant. I love their Mexican food. But man, they do some great picks. And this Knob Creek single barrel Knob Creek single barrel at 120 proof is wonderful. And I think I like it better than most releases from Booker's. Maybe not as much as Charlie's batch. That would be an interesting comparison, but I legit think that these rival the Booker's every time, and definitely look for these because they're 9 years old. They're a little older than Booker's, so if you like oak, you're gonna get a little bit more of an oak presence, but they are watered down slightly. So sometimes they won't quite have as much robust flavor as the Booker's, but overall, these are really solid. Look for these instead of Booker's if you can't find them. Well, drinking buddies, this has been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 allocated whiskeys and 6 alternatives. Please be sure to hammer that like button because I need your help on that. And if you're not a subscriber yet, I do things like this all the time. My main passion is in my blind flights. So if you like watching blind flights, definitely go down below and subscribe. One of my favorite series on WhiskeyTube used to be the Bourbon Junkies. They would do their pour guesses, and they don't seem to do those anymore. So if you need that itch scratched, I can scratch that itch for you because I do blind flights all the time. I do blind samples all the time. So anyway, drinking buddies, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.